Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Is this on? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, very good. Ready? Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So the title today is Fundraising Regularity. And this is a very good time because it is a fundraising period. But it's our fundraising period. In other words, the things that we're doing, you come to a period, different periods in life where, well, the way we got it written here is no more silence. And we have in parentheses also no more intimidation. Although we're not intimidated, but the people we're dealing with are intimidated. And we haven't been silent either. But we haven't been, we're in another stage. And what I want everybody to understand is the stage that we're going through is we've selected the stage. We've selected the work that we'll do in this stage. And therefore, no matter what it looks like from the outside, we have some control over our own affairs. And it takes a long time to get to that point because you have to evolve to that point because most people, when they realize that they're under surveillance by the FBI and others, that alone is enough to quiet people down. Just to know that they're under surveillance. I happened to see a program yesterday on the internet, and it was about the 1991 or 1990s when the Negro leadership was having a program. It might have been either here in Washington, D.C. or somewhere. It was a black leadership conference where the senators, the state representatives and all the representatives at that time had been placed under some investigation by the FBI and what have you. It was all the Negro leadership. Now, at that time, you got to remember in the 90s, the FBI considered, like right now, all of these guys are on the payroll type. But in 1990, they were like, the FBI would still consider them threats to the system. Because at that time, it was a lot of, Damley was a lieutenant governor out in California. So they had to fix it so he won't run for governor, and win. Down in New Orleans, that was state representatives, and there were national representatives developing all around the country at that time. So they had a conference. I think it might have been here in Washington, D.C. You can look it up. It was a C-SPAN conference on black leadership at that time. And it's a C-SPAN. It was, I'll look it up after a while. But anyway, no more silence or intimidation. For us, no more heartbreaking organizations like CARE and the Texas crew down there. What I mean by heartbreaking, see, we're going for what we could have went for a long time ago, or what we was swimming up near that. That is being national representatives of Islam in the United States. Okay, during this period, that's where we'll go to. And you might think, well, why now? Da, 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 da. Well, it's the spiritual timing. Remember, everything that we're doing is not only on our timing, it's historical timing. I mean, if you look at the United States of America and you look at the things that's happening to the United States, you might think they having a streak of bad luck. No, they're in a historical period. Like literally almost every empire went through a period at their decline where they didn't win any wars anymore. They would have the best troops. They would have the best technology. At that time, when the Romans were fighting the barbarians up in Germania and things like that in 300 AD, okay, that was at the decline of the Roman Empire. Not the Holy Roman Empire, which lasted another 1,000 years from Constantinople, but the technical Roman Empire that was running things during Jesus' time, during Julius Caesar's time. That Roman Empire was moving toward a close or a decline. And so, if you look at the British Empire during the last century, in the 20s, and World War I came along, and it looked like it firmed up the British Empire, but the period between 1919, when the war was finished in 1918, and up to World War II, the British Empire was crumbling. And after World War II, it took a nosedive because all the people that were fighting for freedom that was helping the British Empire, they were saying, we could fight the Germans to help you be all right. Then what about you giving us a little something? And so that was a period of unanticipated liberation ideas amongst the people at the same time. We had people go over in World War I when they came back. 1919 was the biggest year for lynching in the United States. Why? Because the soldiers that came back, and they used to have a white folk song, how you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris? You know, what it meant was not only for black troops, but for white folks. How you going to keep people down on the farm after they've been to Paris? You know what I mean? Paris would be the greatest for the Negro now. It not only was the country folks, but that was a big period when people left the country. Remember, that was a time when almost all of Americans lived on farms in the country. So how you going to keep them down on the farm? How you going to keep the Negroes down on the farm after they've been to Paris and after the French have fallen in love with black people? Because the French had lost a whole generation, right? And they had black troops from their colonies come in, but these black troops from America, why, they had them brothers digging graves and everything, and the French said can we have these niggas? The U.S. said, of course you can, take them. They took American uniforms on, put on the French uniforms, and they had them integrated into the French army. And them Negroes fought harder and got more decorations and whipped more people during the whole war. That's what they did. Think back years ago why all black people would go over to France. Musicians, they go to France. Why? Because France fell in love with black people from America. You know, the French. They looked at it as though those Negroes saved us. So Josephine Baker went over there. You know, you ever heard, okay. Yeah, Josephine Baker, she got a lot of kids. Or she didn't get a lot of kids. She adopted a lot of kids. They just changed her gravesite to one gravesite of honor because she was black, but she helped in the French resistance. So she was a spy, a Negro spy. She was playing the role of what she was. She was a black singer in France, and the French loved her, but she was for the French underground. And the Germans would never suspect a Negro to be against, you know what I mean, to be for nothing. And they wouldn't think that the French would be liking no Negro that much. But she left the United States and went over there. It's a long story. But the old saying of how you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris. And remember, over here, if Negroes looked at a white woman, they would kill him. And they went over there and the French women liked them. You know, like, we like you people. Yeah, I mean, great job, you know, stuff like that. And the whole French public, they didn't do their colonies too well, you know what I mean? But for Negroes from America, during the late 20s and 30s, the black people over here, the big musicians and all that, they went over there. In fact, when I was over there, a lot of musicians that wanted to make it good, they would go over to Paris. They would go over to Denmark and Sweden and all those places. And the white people over there loved them. When I was there, they had a fundraiser for Angela Davis, and Angela Davis' sister came over. And I was in Denmark, in Copenhagen. They had a big fundraiser for Angela Davis there. And when you would go into a white girl's house, which Negroes were special, now you could imagine. Just imagine if you're in the army and you're down in Germany, and on your weeks off or when you get time, you can catch the train and go up to Denmark and Sweden, because they're right there close together. So you get on the train, and that's why the Negro called me on my 75th birthday. I think I might have told you all about it. And he said, remember the last time you saw us in a train station? And yeah, da-da-da-da-da. Well, anyway, imagine now, when I'm in Germany, this is during the Vietnam War, and they were all not volunteers. They just snatched them niggas up, and they didn't want to be in the army for nothing. And the Black Power movement, if you think it was something outside, you should have seen it in the army. So, I mean, all that handshaking, and if you was black in America, you know, when you go outside of America, you're super whatever you trying to remember and them Negroes were super black. But now, when they went up to Denmark and Sweden, them white girls love Negroes. And you go into a white girl's house, she'd have every book on blacks, every book written by a black, all the blacks at that time, Soul on Ice, you know, Eldridge Cleaver, they had every book. So technically they knew, I mean, they had them just because they were interested in Negroes, you know. And they liked I'm telling you, it was a trip. One day, I'm on a place, we call it Pussy Ali, the street. The whole stroll for Copenhagen. Now, just imagine Copenhagen. You've heard of Danish pastries, right? Well, about 4:00 in the morning, they cooking all them Danish pastries, real Danish, not the stuff they have here. They call it Danish pastry. They're not like that. You eat any Danish pastry, you're going to like it. So early in the morning, We get up, even if it's 6 or 7 o'clock, man, them Danish pastries is fresh. And that was part of the lifestyle. But also the thing about it too was there are many people in Denmark. Number one, there were people we call Eskimos. Because Denmark is up there and they have places that belong to them. Like, and those people, they up there at the top of the world, they have little colonies, where the people are Eskimo. They're real, we call them Eskimos, and that's what they are. And they lived up there, but anyway, Denmark was such a country. In those days, they loved black people. But when you travel around and you see the government hated anybody or they felt uncomfortable with anybody that liked us. So they had a Negro called Monkey Man came in just before I got there. He was supposed to be pimping, and he was pimping Danish women and talking about you Danish men as weaklings, which Danish men are nice, easygoing people. At least they used to be. Now they hate niggas. Because the government, everywhere people liked us, they sent some Negroes there to mess it up. So Monkey Man, that's what they called the nigga. I never met him. He had just left when I got there. But he went on TV and he was trying to make the people of Denmark, especially the men, hate black men. Okay. So, and then cause the Negroes, they go on with white girls, they was putting a little extra juice in whatever they was doing. And so the people actually they got along very well together. Anyway, a lot of things I learned in Denmark. Simple things. Like I used to live, it was one of my homeboys, because he was police. He was my brother's age. That means he was 3 or 4 years older than I was. I mean, I knew him from my neighborhood in Oakland. He was over there when I first went into a club one night. There he was. And it was, in those clubs, it was mostly white women and black men. And they'd have these bowls. They'd have a bowl, and then they'd put tinfoil around the bowl and punch a little hole in this side, punch a little hole on that side. And so when you come in place, they give you a bowl sometime. You put the hash on one side and light it, and you would take this end of the bowl and suck. And so it was like a pipe, but it was called a bowl. And they would, everybody would get a bowl. And so, that's how you got high. They would be smoking mostly hash. You put it, like just imagine you take a bowl, put tinfoil over it, and punch little holes on this side, punch little holes on the other side, and light it, and you just sit up there and get high. Because it was like, it wasn't legal, but nobody was, if everybody got one, it couldn't be that bad. So Amsterdam was like that. And those were all colonial countries. Like Amsterdam used to have colonies in parts of Africa a little bit. And but the young people were totally against all of that. And it was a nice environment. Anyway, let me get back to what I was talking about. Technically, my talk today is about the fundraising industry or fundraising regularity. I wanted to mention some of those things because there are cycles in life. And the cycle we was talking about in the beginning was the rise and fall of empires. And certain things happen to each empire at the time of its decline, like things happened to it during its ascendancy. If you would have went back 200 years ago, the U.S. was on its ascendancy. No matter how much evil they did, no matter what happened, Allah done wrote it, they're going to keep on climbing. and they slaughtered Indians, slaughtered buffalo, and left them out. It was unbelievable. But they was on the ascendancy, because remember, the Quran is clear. Everybody get their time, or they get their time. Allah want to see what you want to do. Allah don't need to do it so that Allah will find out what you're going to do. No, it's so you will be witness to your own ascendancy and decline. And at every period of ascendancy and decline, at the time of the decline, someone comes along to remind the society what's happening. Yeah, okay. That's been our job. That's been our job for the longest. There's positive to it, and then there's negative to it. So we'll talk about a little bit of both. When I went over to Sudan some years ago, the guy on over WPFW, Askia Muhammad. You ever heard of Askia Muhammad? Yeah. Askia Muhammad, as probably a program that you might have never seen, it was from 2001. And 2001 is when we did a program down at Press Club. 2001. I don't know if you ever seen that.
Maybe can you describe it?
Oh, it was a program where Muhammad Al-Asi spoke. Okay, a lot of people spoke. Okay, now remember, I'm giving a lot of historical things. Certain things happened from that. There was a program over there in Virginia, and I was coming down the steps, and then I met one of the Imams, Arab from Cleveland. He was speaking to me very nice and everything. So Muhammad Al-Asi told me, he said, yeah, he said that the brothers saw you on TV and they had discussions amongst themselves. And he was telling me that his wife was telling him, this Imam from Cleveland, head of the big Masjid there, was telling him, shouldn't we be doing what they doing? Like, we was taking a stand. Okay, we took a stand. And the stand we took seemed to be much more superior because it included black people, but it was an Islamic position with Islamic history, and the people wasn't used to that. They wasn't used to either you come with super duper black, like what's the name there? The other people who was on there, this black stuff. Okay, but it didn't it didn't knock nothing out of the box. Okay, so, and then Muhammad Al-Asi was on there, another Imam was on there, but everybody remembered what I was saying. That's why during the question and answer, I don't know if that was on too, but they asked me a lot of questions and the point is this. That was a key period because at that time I mentioned about W.L. Nolan that'd been killed in the yard in Soledad. W.L. Nolan was a friend of mine, and he was associated with George Jackson. In fact, he would be considered the person that gave George Jackson and Fleeta Drungle manhood training, because W.L. Nolan was a good fighter. His brother Cornell Nolan was a big fighter. But they, you get involved in colored living, they start drinking, and then, they was just known in our neighborhood. And I was in a joint with, it was a kiddie joint, FRS, Frico Ranch School for Boys in 57. W.L. Nolan was there. And W.L. Nolan was my best friend's cousin, who was a boxer too. Okay, make a long story short, when we went over to the Sudan, it was a group of preachers that they wanted to, that's when the Sudan, when they was having the stuff about female genital mutilation and slavery in the Sudan. Now, if you mention, first of all, that was 2 points that black people wanted to just squash. Number one, if you tell a black woman that you're going to clip around on her vagina when she accepts Islam, they ain't going for it. The next thing is slavery in the Sudan. I don't know if you remember that. It was a long time ago. Slavery in the Sudan. That was all the news, is slavery in the Sudan. So we went with a group of preachers from this area, Baltimore and all around, and they took a group of preachers over to Sudan to see for themselves. Because see, it was white folks would go over there, or they would send money, and the white folks would go around. It was a big game that the brothers was playing on them. So the white Christian organizations was hooked up to free slaves in the Sudan. So today, me and you might go, me and you are brothers, regular blood brothers, and today you bring me. How much you give me for this nigga? This is my slave. You're telling them. And so while we'll give you $500. Now $500 might as well be 5 million in the Sudan. The next day I come and I got you. How much you give me for this nigga here? This is my slave. And they ran that game, like here's white folks with all this money. So they wore them crackers, those Europeans out with that issue of slavery in the Sudan. So when we went over there, they said, man, I can go get some money. We can go get money right now. So they said they was talking about how Christians was being oppressed and what have you. And right along the Nile, Durman is over here and Khartoum is on this side. Right next to the State House is the biggest church in the Sudan. And so if the Muslims if the Muslims were oppressing the Christians, why all the Christians from the south was running to the north for liberation? It didn't make sense. So anyway, we had a good time over there. But when we went, it was a brother that had heard that lecture. Askia Muhammad had heard that lecture that I gave down at the press club. And so we was talking all the time. See, he used to be the editor of Muhammad Speaks way back when. And I used to talk to him about it from time. So he said, yeah, he said, when I saw you give that lecture and you talked about W.L. Nolan and all those people, he said, that was my first assignment in 1968 when I went to California for Muhammad Speaks. He said, that was my first assignment, that case. And so when I talked about it, he just got juiced up. Now, on that trip to Sudan, him and I spent all the time together because we was talking about all the old ministers and all of that stuff from back in the day. Nobody else, he couldn't talk to nobody about that stuff. But he and I could talk about it in detail. Oh, you remember so-and-so? Yeah, it was this, that, and another. And from that period, that was nobody. You could ask him right now. He's still over WPFW, I think. Just ask him about Imam Musa and, all the people that we knew, because he was the editor later on of Muhammad Speaks. So he had to get up on all that. He knew all of it. Anyway, the point is that the arena that we're playing in right now, only a few people understand that arena. And that's what we want to talk about today. the arena that we're playing in. And that's something very important. The first thing is that we're not like CARE and like those Muslim, what's the name? Muslim Legal Fund, yeah. We're not like them. And now everybody knows that. And this thing about timing and when to do things, see, there are certain things that we might know, but Allah is in charge of all the timing and how everything has to, now as we move to the forefront. Example, fundraising. I'm going to write up one of the things like we've been writing up before. And so probably not every night, but at least a minimum of 3 nights a week. I'm going to go out to different mosques and pass out flyers. I might have a box, but I'm going to pass out flyers. Each flyer will have a picture. So by the time we get into stuff, it'll be back, we'll be back on the front page. That's why we always put pictures on our flyers so that people will recognize that it's not just a name, it's some face that goes with that name. And then there's certain behavior patterns. The behavior pattern that we've exhibited, I'll just show some of them. We already know them, but it's been pretty serious. So this is from several years ago. Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare. So this has a place in Oakland, here, and it has thing where we was on Fox News. A lot of people remember that Fox News because, see, Sean Hannity would intimidate other people. And one of the brothers was telling me about, in fact, it was a tattletale. He said, no, your body language was clear. I don't care nothing about y'all, and I'm not impressed with whatever you're talking about. And he said, that was clear. He said, that if people picked that up alone, which they did, because now I want you to remember, after that, I didn't show up on literally nothing. The Zionists talked about me, but they didn't never give me a shot at explaining anything about what we're about. They always was going to explain it because they said, no, we can't scare the nigga. We can't offer him nothing. And one of the guys from one of the big channels down in Atlanta, this was during that same period. He came here for an interview, couple of interviews, and then he played them down there. And he said, man, he gave me the ratings. He said first rating was 3 point something or other, and everybody else, the highest they would get would be 1.7 on a news program. He said his second program was a 4 point something or other, the next day. Anyway, so Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare. So that means that we met the Zionists on the highest stage of action. That's what we've done. And evidently by the language, we don't care. Or it's not that we're disrespectful, but in a way we are. Everybody else, the Zionists whipped them to death, like CARE, like the other people. Hey man, they just fear the Zionists. And we got the Zionist number, like I mentioned it before, like one of the old boxers. He had Muhammad Ali. Could nobody else mess with Muhammad Ali, but he could. I had his name on it. And he actually beat Muhammad in one fight. The guy, he came back, Muhammad came back, but he just had a silly, unorthodox style. And Muhammad wasn't, he had his number. So no matter how bad someone is, you get their number, like the Zionist. In the world, in the Arab world, Hezbollah has the Zionist number. So in 2006, now we gave the same prognostication earlier, but in 2006, Hezbollah, when you saw the Zionists on TV, some of them were crying real tears, big tears. We can't see them, we can't find them. I said, maybe they're doing the ghost, they got the ghost shirts on or something. We can't find them, and they were crying. So that means, look, the Israelis had 4 and 5 generation weapons. And the brothers in Lebanon, Hezbollah, had combined 2nd and 3rd generation weapons, right? To be able to combat their 4th and 5th generation, which nobody else could do that. But they used them in a different configuration, a different combination. And they was able to wear out. Plus, they wasn't afraid of the Zionists. That's the main thing. Okay. So Hezbollah has always been our friend. This is from 2012, what it's called the Great Recovery. A setback ain't nothing but a setup for a comeback. In this, we tell about our story, our challenges, what we're about, what we've been doing, and we're talking about Imam Musa has been excluded from the mainstream platform of accepted speakers. In the meantime, he has survived over 30 years of attacks mounted by saboteurs, agent provocateurs, informers, and collaborators. Thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Imam Musa's organization has endured more fitna and lasted much longer than any other similar organization in U.S. history. That was 10 years ago. It's 2012. So instead of 30 years, it's 40 years now that we've been doing this. What we was doing 10 years ago, you can see yourself, since you've been here, we have endured, right? We've just endured. And like this great recovery, we was faking the recovery. We was going through the motions like we're going to do this. We're doing the recovery now. Nobody would have 10 years not to play with, but 10 years just to box. It's like an exhibition. Exhibition match, not a championship match. It's an exhibition. So we have boxed with the Zionists in public for all these 10 years to show the people, look, watch this footwork. The Zionists ain't nothing. Y'all scared of a Zionist? And watch what we do. Bop! You scared of America, the boss man? You scared of him? Watch this. Bop, bop, bop. And all the stuff we've done in that period proves, if we're here now, which we are, these are just certificates for here. This is legal stuff. It's some of our legal stuff from California. But they just took our property and let somebody else have it. That's fine. Wonderful. Right? We'll get it back when we want it. That's one of the other things. They've been trying to get us back out there for years. We ain't going. When we go, we're going when we want to go. The battle that we are involved in is a battle that we have charge of. The United States government have been moving in certain ways, like when you remember the FBI came by here, they were setting up things so we would fall in. They wanted to collaborate then, but they wanted to collaborate on their terms. That's why we've been always saying, no, 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 no. You get down and we know you get lying anyway, but you're going to acknowledge in front of us, right, where you coming from, where we coming from, and you're going to acknowledge that. And if you don't, we're going to do what we want continuously. So they're losing patience with themselves because we have carried this thing on 10 or 15 years beyond what they thought. They thought they just throw out an olive branch or a little bit of this and we'll snap at it. No, 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 no. We done learned our lessons. Okay. This is 2008, American Gangster phase, Malcolm X phase, our current phase. So we've been under strategic management and conditions of repression for a long time. This is one of our conferences in 2008. You know, it was a national conference. Okay, if you look at some of these pictures, you would see, I don't know if you've seen any of these, but this is an Eid, and it's just packed with people.
I've seen that picture before.
Okay, if you see there's our school, there's all of our children, these people are grown and graduated from university now, right? Okay, so we were doing that then. We're not going to do that now because we're in a different stage. Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare, da 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 da. So whatever it is we've been doing, we've been setting the stage. On the back is Eid Mubarak. We're going to have another letter for Eid Mubarak, but we're going to have a letter. In fact, I'm write it this evening, and maybe tomorrow you can. But we're going to put out our own. See, like we went out last week, and so if we go out just on Fridays, we won't have time to build up not a following, but people who recognize. As soon as they see us, they recognize. So probably about 3 nights a week or more, I'm going to go out to places and I'm going to pass out flyers. The flyer that we're getting ready to make up. And that flyer, yeah, that will explain a lot of what we're talking about, you know. These are some of the old flyers about the forgotten ummah. You know what I mean? You can see, so we have always been, all of our flyers, all of our programs that we were doing at whatever time we was doing have always been, we got these things that prove it. That prove we not only had the program, but we had the idea. Repunk the FBI, you probably seen some of those. Building Islamic Dream in Southeast D.C. These our children this is Fatima then, so they was like, this is this is 15 years ago at least. But that's what we were doing at that time. But we're not going to repeat that. We've already done that. Friend raiser, not a fundraiser, but a friend raiser. You know, that's what no, that's a friend raiser. Bombing patterns, you know, talking about the patterns of bombing, reaching our goals, building our dreams, and all of that stuff. Letter of introduction to D.C. area community. I don't know if you remember seeing any of this. This is a letter to the Christian community. We passed them out at various churches. If it was Sunday, we'd be out passing them out. And we passed them out in Oakland. Now we'll actually actualize some of this stuff. Yeah. But see, the reason I'm just going over this so that people that see this, when they look and see, you guys ain't got no friends and nobody come to your programs, nobody said, well, stay at home. Stay at home. We've already been doing our job. We get our reward, our ajr from what we do, not from what you do.
We're going to take care of our own hereafter.
Yeah, that's right. You got to get your own. You got to look out for your own akara. Open letter to the D.C. police. That's just stuff we did. Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare. We really had a lot of programs, and we played that up pretty much, So As-Sabiqun have been busy doing what we think Allah wanted us to do, a great recovery. This is a recovery. So if we announce we're going to make a big, great recovery, what is Boss Man going to do? Come out to us. So if we want him to make a move, all we do is threaten. We getting ready to go, Boss Man, and here he come, right? So once he ran his game, it gives us time to view, to analyze. We're not getting ready to do nothing. We're just going to watch what he's just doing. And we might do it 2 or 3 times in a row. Pretty soon, you got to realize Boss Man is slow. Oh, yes, indeed, he's slow. But nobody ever tries him to show that he's slow. Nobody has ever gotten involved with him to be able to weigh and measure and estimate his power and authority. Because they're always watching him on, ooh, he'll do this and he'll do that. And if that's the way they look at him, that's what he'll do to them. And they'll scare him to death. Well, suppose you can see from our policy that we ain't never been scared of Boss Man. And Zionists neither. While everybody else watched Imam Luqman get martyred and what have you, we're the only ones that had a fundraiser for him. Ayub told me he went to the funeral, to the janazah, and the Imam came from New York and had the janazah, and he didn't collect a dime. It was 3,000 people there. If they'd have gave $10 each, that could have been $30,000. He didn't do it. He could have collected, I don't know how much money for the family. His wife was from Tanzania, and they sent her back. She used to call me all the time. First call I got from her was when she was still here. She said, my husband has no gravestone. So I said, how much money do you need for a gravestone? So I just sent it to her right away. Because the Negroes here, they didn't do nothing. This is one of their homeboys. They didn't do nothing. Building a dream of Islamic independence, no matter what thing you run across, this word dream, our vision for the future, but independence. There's no sense having a dream and you're dependent on somebody else for its fulfillment, which they're not going to do. Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare. Boy, look at here. The Zionists didn't like this. This 2016 letter from IRS. I wrote them a letter, told me to send me the read thing for our, our paperwork and everything, and our tax ID number. All that's on here. Yeah, I could give a copy of this to anybody who needs it. And what did they do? They gave all of our stuff to the Negroes out there. It won't be you can see it ain't no problem with winning. Letter of introduction, this was a letter of introduction that we gave out some years ago. We will do another letter of introduction sometimes before Tuesday, inshallah. So that every night when we go out, we'll have a box with us, but we'll also be going just to visit all the centers and to get, look, by the time we have the Eid, everybody's going to know who we are over and over again. And they'll have to have an opinion. Either we like them or we don't. But they'll at least know who we are. And who's going to be able to not like somebody because we're standing up. Everything we're standing up for is what they wish they had the courage to stand up for. You know?
Yeah, that's the feel like, Muslims, most of them, they walk by and they see us. They feel good to see us, but they don't see themselves doing it.
No, they don't see them. But see, that's our job, is to help people along. If you know what the disease is, then you have to develop a formula of medicine, how often you administer the medicine, what the dosages are and what have you, and then allow time. Because the medicine will help a lot of the problem, but you have to give the medicine time to work. So that's what we're doing with the people, honoring our martyrs. This is 2010, man, that is 12 years ago. That's 12 years ago. Nobody did nothing about Imam Jamil. In fact, they stole his community and everything else. Why haven't we gotten involved in that right now? Is because we got to do this, and we got to hopefully get big enough to get him out of the prison house. Masjid al-Islam, vision statement, and our vision of the future. You could tell these little lines here. That mean we cut this out right here and did another. Yeah, because see, in Oakland we didn't have. You don't have a typist. You don't have all of those things you need. So we just took some of our old flyers and made a new one. Put a new date on there. You know what I mean? And cut the dates out of other stuff, because the dates you can see going like this a little bit. This is 2015, got a dot here, But what the heck? We got the stuff out. So that means that we're not locked in with perfection. We're locked in with getting the job done. And no matter what happens, it don't make no difference what they do. We're going to do what we believe Allah wants us to do during this period. Another fundraising luncheon. Another. This is one of our favorites. How to punk the FBI. Front and back. And it's got all the hadith and everything to go with it. But we was making fun of the feds, and they haven't came by and said, "You talk about us, man." No, they come by. We just want to talk to you. They were like nice guys, This is Mr. Mandela. We having a program over there in South Africa, and the Zionists get to him. Mandela acts as host to men of terror. That's why it says lies, damn lies. That's what Mandela said. That's when we had our big program in South Africa. Mandela said, them people talking to me, He says open door policy. He said we're welcome. And what they saying is a bunch of damn lies. I can show this now. This is one of our friends that just called in the other day. This is when he first got out of prison. And we was in Algeria together. This is from 15 years ago, at least, 2006, 15 or 16 years. Forgotten hero. If we're talking about he was forgotten then, imagine what they've done now. It's as though as he don't exist. Okay. But see, so we got a lot of stuff to do. And this is a person that we hold dear. So we got to get big and help get him out of the penitentiary because he's not a teenager. Technically, he's older than I am. I don't look to be around, well, I'll say another 25 years, but that's not, that you don't get a card, a guarantee, a certificate for that say, yeah, you got another 25 years. You might have 2 years, you might have 35 years, you may have, but you don't know that. Anyway, nonviolent resistance, that's relatively new, but it's on the other side of letter to DC churches. The Great Recovery, Psychological guerrilla warfare again has worked, and then we lay out how it has worked. That was for then, and it's on the other side of Oakland and the Islamic Revolution, Oakland and the American Islamic Revolution, Imam Jamil, Imam Luqman, and myself. Okay. All of that give you an idea of where we have been, but it also gives you an idea of where we have to go and basically also how we're going to get there. As far as this fundraising stuff go, we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. We don't have to beg nobody. We just get out, and we do it over and over again. And it don't mean that it'll become a fundraising industry like CARE and all of those. But see, we design our flyers so that the people will see what we're trying to do, and inshallah, they will, I know by how they're already acting and where the Muslim mind is kind of settling, that this is the job they would like to see done. They just don't want to do it. And that's what we're going to tell them. No, we're going to do it. This is our job. Your job was not to come over here and jump on boss man. Your job is here. You go. Don't worry. You do what you got to do. Your children will come in later. Like the kids at the university now that are born here from immigrants. They in school, they've been taught that old rag, the Constitution. We have freedom, and they standing up. They saying, wait a minute. Their parents, they can't stand up because they are happy to be here. I mean, you'd have to live overseas sometime to see how happy they would be to be here, even in this crumbling decline. Okay. So no more silence or intimidation. We've never been silenced and we've never been intimidated. But we've been coasting along at our own buoyancy to do what we think is the right thing to do. So, our immediate goal, we have to stand up for our brothers and sisters. Imagine now the Muslims, they don't stand up for the Muslims in Yemen. And remember, it's not only Yemen, but the Zionists and the Americans can do what they want to do. And they make the other people that they're killing seem like it's your fault that we have to kill you. We have to go invade your country and kill all the people, and you're making us do this because you're so bad. And remember now, we have to help the American people understand what they're doing. Because, see, you remember we'd go to those demonstrations, Black Lives Matter? All those kids, they don't know what's going on. If you look at them, you could tell that they're relatively innocent, want to be in the right place at the right time type people. Because anything that calls them out, oh, Black Lives Matter, they just get a little whiff of it and they said, we want to support that. See, all of them, they're not police. It's the one that managing it, they the police. They definitely police, Okay. Also, you could see from all of those things that there's a lot of things going on below the surface and up near the surface that a lot of people are not aware of. They're just not aware of. They wouldn't be aware that we went out there 7 or 8 times talking about teach-ins and what people should do. And the people, as they walk by hearing it, especially when they would have to stop and listen, they thought that that's reasonable. But the people handling the demonstration, they wouldn't do none of that. Have a teach-in to teach, okay, here we are now. Here's how we got here. Here's what we do while we're here. Here's where we want to go. The minimum. They didn't do that. They didn't do that because the police was in charge of Black Lives Matter. And to prove it is that the people, remember how they just had to get Imam Musa on the video, from overseas. And also my nephew, great nephew, he had to just had to have it. When I didn't do what they want, no more calls, no more nothing, finish. Because, see, if we do what they want, then they're controlling our direction. We might as well be asleep because they're going to send us in a way that's not healthy for our development. Okay, so number one, we're not going to put up with that. Number two, we're not going to let you isolate us and cut us off. I want you to imagine how paranoid the system and the Zionists are right today. Why? Because we're going to go out and we're going to be at every masjid. We'll go out, we'll have it a Maghrib Isha time, one masjid Maghrib. We'll zip over to another one for Isha, and we'll do it several times a week. So that when we come with boxes, or we might have boxes in, whatever we do, by the time Eid rolls around, we will have done several flyers and the people will be aware of who we are. And when we stand out there with a box, if these communities try to do something about it, the people are going to say, those are the same people that, they're anti-Zionist. And imagine how happy the Palestinians are in America that are so afraid now. They're not doing nothing, and they hear us reciting the ayats and talking about wahda and unity. Yeah, we can't lose. And Boss Man is done for. Campaign to build national command structure. The first steps with D.C. and Oakland, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it without their input. See, that's the message we're giving the government. Okay, you want us to come out there to California and we win the case, that you didn't help arrange. Well, it looks like they didn't help arrange it. And then when we do that, why? It's a big deal and it's good. But if we do what we want to do first from here, then we're in control of our own. And when we get what we get from them, we just add it to what we're doing. And boss man can't never come back and say, well, we helped you when you really needed it. No, 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 no. We told you that if you want us to collaborate or continue in certain things, then you have to almost sign, of course they lie, but you got to make almost not a public agreement, but a kind of yeah, we know what's going on, and good luck and all of that. They're not going to do it, so we're not going to do nothing. We're not going to collaborate with them. We don't learn the lessons. We don't want to play overly controlled, but we're not going to hand over what we worked for decades to you, and you don't know what you're doing. See, the other people, they don't, no matter how many mistakes, they're stupid in Afghanistan, stupid in the rest. They haven't made a correct move in so long, nobody remembers. You got to think about it. They don't make, and poor old Biden, whatever his name is, this man can't remember his name. And he just looks like a dotard. When the Quran talking about one of the prophets, he said, I'm not a dotard. That was not Surah Ibrahim, but Surah, that was Yusuf's father. When he brought the thing and they was kind of thinking this guy done lost his mind. He'll never forget about Joseph. And he says to them, I'm not a dotard. I'm not, a dummy. I know what I know. You don't know. Okay. So looking forward to the challenge. Perfect story, perfect location. All of this stuff, what we're doing, literally perfect. The property we own around here is perfect for the setup. We will raise our own money. We will put whatever we need there. We're going to do that. And it's good for us so that we have it in our own, that, hey, we can do. So this project, it's a project so that the people will know that they have it in them and they have the ability and that they can hold on to. See, people look at what we're doing like heroics and such abnormal stuff that it's just a few people can do it. Well, that ain't what it is. We want the people to know about self-esteem, how to weigh and measure yourself. We can do it. Come from the same historical, racial, ethnic, historical background. If we can do this, you can do it. Now just imagine when the tastes get around and everybody start giving Boss Man a try. Okay. Look forward to the challenge. Our history, a lot of the flyers that we have, a lot of our history is reflected in the flyers. This is not all of them, it's just some of them. And we have a lot from other periods. This is transition period. Make fun of the Zionist Americans. Give hope to the masses. A behavior at the end of this cycle. See, we talk about it all the times, but this is a cycle. And this is the U.S. behavior. He just leave Afghanistan and leave it loose. He went to Libya and killed all the people of Libya, got rid of Gaddafi, and the Europeans, they all shared in the spoils of war, but everybody saw what they was doing. And nothing as good as came out for the Libyan people. There's no unity, harmony, or collective action there at all. Okay, the 2003 attack on Iraq, man, that was a long time ago. No benefit from it except that they disorientated and destroyed the whole country. And everywhere you look right now, whether it's the Lebanon, whether it's Yemen, the richest Arab country in the world, and you have to remember, people have to stop and listen or think when we say this because they already know that everything we're telling them is true. And they're saying, why is the Negro the only one out here saying about Yemen? They're not Arabs, you know what I mean? They're not Palestinians even. And when we can take the Quran and show them where it's our duty from the Quran, you know, and they think about, that's the same ayat they use for Isra wa Miraj, not for the support of Palestine, right? So anyway, that's where we're headed, and we ask Allah's help. And we pray for the end of the Zionists. The Zionists at the end of their cycle too. Just to mention, just like the Americans have lost and fumbled a lot. Okay, if you look at the Zionists are meaner, but they're not the original Israelis that felt surrounded and almost hopeless, and they had to stay united to fight. In Israel, they've had the Ethiopians came, and the Ethiopians are yelling racism. They have the moderates, and they have the intelligent Israelis are saying, man, you are stealing everything beyond anything that was good or necessary. We're not for it. So they pretend on the media that Israel is a united body, and Israel is like America. Especially when they roll in with that racism on the Ethiopians. We can't take your shahada. We ain't gonna even take y'all's blood. That's what they were saying, because your blood is African blood, and that, hey man, y'all got stuff over there. We ain't gonna, you mix it with this European. That's what they did. And just like they have police brutality here, they have police brutality there, beating on the Ethiopians, right? So the conscious Jews in South Africa, when I was there, they had a couple of programs, not in our name. You're not going to do this stuff in our name. We're Jews, and we're not going to have you doing that stuff. Not in our name, buddy. So you got to remember, the collapse of the United States is headed that way, and the collapse of Israel is headed that way. The collapse of Saudi Arabia is headed that way. The collapse of that whole crew. Anybody that signs on with America and Israel now, they're signing on to a train wreck. They're signing on to a train wreck. And if they want to work toward liberation, this is a good time. So, Akula Kali Hada, Wastaghfirullah li wa lakum. Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, this was a follow-up comment to, I want to say this was Thursday's lecture, I think. A brother said one of your predictions about people taking trucks was coming true. Today in LA, they were talking about rerouting the train from coming into LA because of theft. People have started breaking into the trains taking goods.
Oh yeah, I heard that on the news. The stuff about uh like uh train robberies. Like for instance, all the mail. It's starting to snow already. All the mail. They bring that mail into L.A. and the people knock them trains over. People have always did train robberies, but now they're parked there for several hours, and then all of these famous mailing companies, they have to ship that mail, and the people come through there and just uh, open all the packages, take what they want, and throw the rest out on the ground. Yeah, and they can't. It costs too much money to watch it all the time, so they have guards. But yeah, I had heard that on the radio the other day. I heard about how bad that is. But that's just all of the stuff that there's stuff worse than that happening for America is done for, and it still won't repent. It could still pull out of this nosedive, but would have to do right. And it's like the lead shoes of history will not allow it to pull out of a nosedive because it just won't do it. It can't. It's too much. The rich got most of the money, and they want the rest of the money.
Right. Yeah. They got all the money already.
They got.
They going back for that 1% they left the people.
They got to have that. They got to have it. Okay, so that's just the greed. That's just insanity. You know what I mean? But that is historical. It happened to everybody. The same repetitive behavior. That's why all we have to do is read history to predict the future. They think, man, this guy got a crystal ball. All we got to do, what happened to the Romans? And there it is. Just put a modern date on it. What happened to the Babylonians? Just put a modern date on it, and it'll be happening. So, alhamdulillah. Are there any more questions or comments?
Our sister said, subhanAllah wa ta'ala, your words are true and accurate. Allah protects the believers.
Yeah.
And I had one question. You see that fitna going down in Texas last night about the hostage situation?
Yeah.
Any comments on that?
No, because I don't have the full, you know what I mean, the full backup story on what, but
I mean, that's fine.
no, they had,
a lot of inflammatory stuff in that entire concoction down there, man.
okay, now what happened? The guy, he goes into a synagogue or something. He's in a synagogue and he got the Jews, but it's not an anti something or other. And so I was listening to it, but we have to wait on a minute to see what was that. You know what I mean? What it really add up to.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Oh, okay. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.